so today what we're going to be talking about is author's purpose and text evidence. The reason why we do have author's purpose is basically to understand why a writer is writing a piece of work and why we are reading it. Now, in order for us to identify the author's purpose, we also always need to kind of back it up. So it's just like how when we talk about main idea, you have the main idea, but then you need to back it up with details, right? It's the same thing with author's purpose. We first need to identify what the author's purpose is, and then we use text evidence to prove that. Make sense? Any questions on that? Okay, so make sure you have today's date on your upper right-hand corner in your journal, which is May 16th, 2019. Then go ahead and write down the learning target. Today's learning target reads, I can identify and explain the author's purpose by using text evidence. When you're done with that, put your pencil down so I know that you are ready to move forward. Now, when we're talking about author's purpose, we also need to remember the kind of clue word, which is PI. P stands for something, the I will stand for something, and the E will stand for another purpose, okay? So you've learned author's purpose before, but now what you're doing here is just taking this skill and using it on a 4th grade level because you're all 4th graders. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. I'll give you about a few more moments, I should say, to get it all down. If you don't get it all down, it's fine. We can go back and we'll do it later, okay? All right. Looks like we're all done, so we're going to go to the next page. Move this over to that side. There we go. Okay? All right, so text evidence. Please start writing this down. Text evidence basically just means you're supporting your answer by pulling information straight from the text. You're not pulling it from anywhere else. Just like how when we tell you to answer questions, any type of reading questions on a reading passage, you go straight to the text. Whether you are highlighting it or underlining it, again, you're going straight to the text. Now, in order for you to make sure that your answer is complete, this is where you start using text evidence, because that will ensure or make sure that your answer is complete. And there are some sentence starters that we can use to help us speak knowledgeably, meaning that you understand what it is you're reading. So some of the text evidence sentence starters that we can use is the author wrote or the author stated. According to the text, you could say the text stated, or you could say in the text it said. One example from the text is, from the reading I know that, and then you would complete the sentence. Based off of what I've read, then you would complete the sentence. Now sometimes you will be using different paragraphs. This says pages because as you guys get older, you're going to be reading longer reading passages. So what that means is sometimes when you're going off into middle school, you'll be reading novels and reading. You won't be reading the smaller passages that we read in elementary, okay? So what that means is sometimes your teacher will ask you, okay, where did you get that information from? Instead of saying a paragraph, you'll say on page 37, it said. Or on page 45, I noticed. Okay? And then, of course, whenever we're giving an example, you can use the word for example. Another fancier word for example is for instance. For instance and for example means basically the same thing. And then sometimes when you are answering a question, you would state your answer in the first part of the sentence, and then you would say, because in the text it says this. Does everyone understand? Okay, so when you are meeting with me in small group, we will be answering our questions using these sentence starters, and I want to see that in your answers and as you're talking about it with me in small group. All right? All right, so like I said, when we were talking about author's purpose, we remember pie. Who loves pie? I love pie. Pie is really good. My favorite pie is apple pie. My dad makes the best apple pie. Okay? So there is pie stands for something. First, what is the first word? Everyone?
Persuade.
The second word?
Inform.
The last one?
Entertain.
All right. So you guys are going to get some notes here that I've already printed out for you. You are going to fill in some of the blanks, okay? You can. There's 4 of you. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You all take one and then pass it around. Okay? So you're going to fill in the blanks with what we've read up here. So Santiago, can you read what persuade means?
The author tries to get the reader to feel, think, or believe in a certain way. The author might even want the reader to take action, like make change.
Okay, so if they, by the end of that passage when you're reading something, and they might get you or want you to try to do something yourself. So a good one that a lot of teachers use is recycling. Not all people recycle. And it's important for us to recycle so that we can save our earth. Okay? So if you're reading a passage about recycling, the author at the end of that passage might ask you what are some ways that you can recycle in your community. That is challenging you to take action or make a change in your own thoughts. So what is that first blank that we need to fill in? Because it says the author tries to get the reader to feel. Go ahead and write it in. After they try to get you to feel something, they also might want to make you think something. And then the last one I have already bolded for you is believe a certain way. Again, so it's either feel, think, or believe a certain way. That's the author trying to get you to do, okay? Or what the author's trying to get you to do. Courtney, can you read the inform?
The author wants the reader to learn about a certain topic by giving facts and answers.
All right. So what is our blank that we need to fill in here, Diana? Learn, okay? So to inform, just like how when we were doing our informational writing piece, you had to use details and facts, correct? So when I was done reading your paper, I was able to learn about the topic that you wrote about. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Then entertain, the last one. Catalina, can you read out loud what entertain means?
The author wants the reader to relate to characters in a story. Sometimes the reader will be able to laugh, cry, or even get angry.
Okay, who's ever read a book and you're reading it silently to yourself and one of the characters does or says something funny and you find yourself laughing? Or who's ever read a book and you kind of got angry or annoyed with a character? And you're like, what? Why would you do that? Why would you say that? And you find yourself kind of getting a little bit angry. Okay? Who's ever read a book and a character goes through a certain event in the story and you kind of feel sorry for them? All of those feelings that you find yourself feeling when you're reading a story, the whole purpose is to be entertained by that story so that you are relating to the characters. So sometimes you might even want to cry with the character. Sometimes you might even want to laugh with the characters, and sometimes you might get angry with a character. Or you feel angry about a certain event because the character feels angry. Does everyone understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And we've all felt those emotions because I've seen you sometimes as you're independently reading. And I think, Santiago, I see it in you most, where you're reading and you're sitting at your desk and you start to laugh. It's because the character probably does something funny or says something funny. And again, it's only for you to be able to what? Relate to the characters, okay? Does everyone understand that?
Yes.
All right, so with these notes that we are going to be using today, we're going to be using it so that we can answer some questions about a reading passage. And then on top of that, you'll be able, at the end of our lesson, we'll be able to go back into a small, shorter passage and show what we know about text evidence, okay? Make sense? Do we have any questions on what I just said? Alright, so let's get into our rotations. So for our rotations, Anaya, Nicolette, Natalia, Santiago, Catalina, we are going to start in our rotation number 1. So you guys can take your notes and get immediately started on independently reading. My orange group, that would be Diana, Kiara, Sean, and Efren. You guys get immediately on technology, and you all are going to start doing reading iStation. Okay? And then my last group, which is my yellow group, is going to be Kenny, Yana, Devaney, Jordan Jones, and Courtney. You're going to be with me working on a passage together. So you guys can take your notes, and the 4 of you that are in the desk can come and have a seat. Yes, Carolyn. The library is closed because they're getting ready to kind of end the year. So you can get a book from my classroom library, okay? All right, my 4 or my yellow group comes to the carpet. Thank you. Did someone lose their notes? Up here. Someone may have lost their notes. If you think you've lost them, come and get them. They're right here. Okay, so we have our examples of our sentence starters. Can you come over just a little bit more? All right, so we're going to have a passage and some questions to answer, all right? There we go. Here we go. There we go. There we go. And here we go. Actually, can we get a circle because I'm going to sit down on the floor with you. Okay, so Jordan, you can come over here a little bit. Courtney and Johnny, you can scoot over, and Kenny, you can slide in right there. Okay? Are we good?
Yes.
So we have our text, we have our sentence starters that we will use to help us answer those questions. And then we also have our persuade, entertain, and inform notes that we're going to talk about as we read through this passage. Go ahead and write your first and last name on this passage and then number your paragraphs. Thank you to my others who immediately got started. Great. How many paragraphs should we have?
5.
Since there's 5 of you, each of you get your own paragraph, okay? Understood? Okay, go ahead, Jordan. Read the first paragraph.
Most people aren't afraid of
Tarantulas. Those are like bigger spiders. Okay? Here's your pointer. Goliath.
A person who leads religious ceremonies or prayers. Prehistoric. Adjective. From before the time people started to write. Archaeology. Now.
Okay. You all know what 12 inches is, right? It's 1 foot. So the spider grows as wide as 1 foot. And it eats birds. That's how big it is. Yeah. Yana, go ahead and start with the second paragraph. Tarantulas.
are natural,
Nocturnal. Repeat that, everyone.
nocturnal,
Good.
and will eat anything they catch, such as beetles, grasshoppers, other spiders, and small animals such as frogs, toads, or mice.
Toads.
Toads or mice. When the tarantula is ready to eat, it injects venom
Good.
or poison into its prey. This makes the animal unable to move. The venom also turns the inside of the animal into a liquid, so the
tarantula is able to drink the liquid using its straw-like mouth.
Go ahead, Courtney, third paragraph.
Tarantulas live underground in
Burrows.
burrows that can be more than 3 feet deep. It might dig the burrows itself or might use an old rabbit hole for a toe. Besides burrows, tarantulas have been known to live under rocks or in the loose bark
Good.
of a tree trunk. Sometimes the tarantula makes a silk
Mm-hmm.
covering over the entrance of its home. When an animal walks on the silk mat, it vibrates and lets the tarantula know that a meal is ready.
Go ahead, Kenny.
A tarantula is generally a shy creature and would prefer running away to fighting. If they can't run away, they might lift their front legs into the air and make a hissing sound to the frightened. Their attackers sometimes they hit at the attackers with their front legs. Some kinds of tarantulas have sticky hair that are barbed or hooked on with ends, and they kick to throw these hairs into their attackers' face to
Irritate.
irritate
Everyone ready to say that?
Irritate.
There you go.
them and make them run away. If all else fails, the tarantula may bite, but its bite is not deadly to humans and is similar to a bee sting.
Tarantulas do not have a skeleton on the inside, like we do.
Good.
They have an exoskeleton.
There it is. Say that again. Exoskeleton. Good.
Exoskeleton on the outside. When the spider gets too big for its exoskeleton,
Mhm.
it will molt or shed. The soft exoskeleton underneath will harden to become the spider's new exoskeleton. Tarantulas molt more than 20 times in their 20-year lifetime.
Say it again.
30 year lifetime.
So Miss Jenkins right now is 26. So sometimes these tarantulas can live as long as me. Yeah. All right. Understood? All right. So let's look at some of these questions. Now, number one, it says point to the evidence that show why most people are afraid of tarantulas. Why do you think most people would be afraid of tarantulas based off of what we just said? Tell me what paragraph it is in so that we can talk about it. Courtney,
Paragraph 1.
paragraph 1. What about paragraph 1?
It says, most people are afraid of tarantulas because of their size and their hairy body and legs.
Good. Is there any other information?
Paragraph 4.
Okay.
It says that if they can't run away, they might lift their front legs into the air and make a hissing sound to frighten their attackers. Sometimes they kick at the attackers with their front legs.
Yes. So with that being said, if you see a spider that big, it'll make a sound to the point where you can hear it because it's that big. So it kind of hisses almost like a cat. And if you see a spider that big, run the other way. Just leave it alone. Okay? So when we are working with our statements here, our sentence starters, instead of where it says page, we would use in paragraph. Does everyone see how I spoke about that? Okay? Kenny, do you see? Instead of saying on page, we would say in paragraph. So in your answer, you would say in paragraph 1. Most people are afraid of tarantulas because of their size and their hairy bodies and legs. So in paragraph 1. Catalina, can you get me a whiteboard, please? Paragraph 1, then you would use the text. Most people are afraid of tarantulas because of their size and hairy bodies and legs. Okay, so our sentence starter will be this. In paragraph 1. You already have it, but you can continue it. I gave you the sentence starter, now we just said in paragraph 1. Courtney, go ahead and try number 2. When you're done with number 1, go ahead and try number 2. Number 2 says, contrast the effect of a tarantula bite on its prey compared to the bite on a human. When a tarantula bites something, what does it release into its prey? What is it called? The poison is called what? Starts with a V. Venom. Good. So with that, if it bites, say something small like an insect, do you think the poison is going to be enough to kill it? Yes, because again, tarantulas can grow up to something that's this big, right? All right. So, but when it bites a human, we're bigger than these spiders, right? So, do you think it might kill us?
No.
It could, but what do you think that poison is going to do to our skin or to our bodies?
I think it's gonna get old. Or stop working.
Okay, so it might stop our arm from working.
It might hit our veins.
It might hit our veins. So when that poison gets into our skin, it might cause our skin to
Be wrinkled.
kind of wrinkled or even swell up and maybe bubble up or kind of get a little nasty, a little icky, and it may stop working because it might be painful to us. But if it's something like an insect, that poison very well might kill the insect because insects or beetles or grasshoppers are smaller than us. But with our human body, it might just hurt us a lot, causes a lot of pain, things like that. Okay? Make sense?
Yes.
Santiago.
No.
Does everyone see how we compared how with an insect, because it is smaller than us, that poison very well might kill the insect. But if it bites a human, the poison or the venom may not kill us, but it would hurt us a lot. Okay? Once you've answered question number 2, we're going to stop right there because you're going to finish the rest independently. But let's think about this passage right here. And let's think about our author's purpose. what do we think the purpose of this is? Let's stop right here. You guys can stop right there real quick, okay? You'll finish the rest. But let's think about what we just read. Do we think this passage was to persuade us to feel or think or believe something? Is it, do you think its purpose was for you to believe something? No. Do you think it was for us to relate to characters? Well, let me ask you this. Was there any actual characters in this passage? No, so it's not for us to entertain. So basically, this passage for us to learn about what?
Tarantulas.
Tarantulas. So what this means is because it was for us to learn about tarantulas, the author's purpose would have to be to what?
Inform.
Inform us. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So on the back of your question sheet, I want you to write that this passage was to inform us about tarantulas. Okay? This passage was to inform us about tarantulas. Kenny, why don't you go get another pencil, okay? Instead of having to work with those mechanical pencils every 5 seconds, okay? All right, if you are on my technology, can you please start logging out? If you are independently reading, finish up whatever page you are on so that we can start coming to the carpet so we can do our closing.
So you think this passage
It is meant to inform us about tarantulas. Make sure you're spelling inform correctly and tarantulas correctly. If you are independently reading, finish whatever page you are on. And then you all can come to the carpet. You can put your stuff back there when you're done writing and then come back to the carpet. Okay? You don't need your notebooks, you're just gonna come to the carpet, okay, so that we can do our closing. You can put it back on your desk and then come right back to the carpet. Have a seat on your bottoms, crisscross applesauce. Sure you can. Alright, can someone read this passage for me, number 9? Diana, read it loud and clear, just the paragraph.
American alligators can be found in the southern United States, particularly in Florida and Louisiana. Alligators live in rivers, lakes, forests, swamps, bayous, and marshes. These reptiles are strong swimmers because they are equipped with webbed feet and strong tails to
Propel, repeat that.
propel down through the water. In the wild, American alligator usually lives to be 35 to 50 years old. In the captivity, however, alligators can live longer for 60 to 80 years.
Okay, so I have a question. So if they're out in the wild, that means they're in their kind of natural habitat. This says in captivity, however. That however means that captivity means the opposite of the wild. So if they're in captivity, where do you think alligators might live if they're in captivity? Efren?
Probably hand-made like a swamp or something.
Okay, a handmade swamp. Anywhere else, Natalia?
A zoo or a place where they live animals.
Yes, a zoo or a place where you could look at and exhibit animals.
A pond.
Okay, a pond. Last one, Sean. And a separate ecosystem that was made for them. Okay, so they're not out in the wild. So that means somebody would have to take care of them. Someone would have to feed them. Someone would have to make sure that their environment is clean enough for them to be able to live. Make sense? All right. So let's look at this question. It says, make an inference. Why do you think alligators live in Florida and Louisiana? There is some kind of detail in here that supports why they live in Florida or Louisiana. Diana?
Because it says because these reptiles are strong swimmers because they are equipped with webbed feet and strong tails to propel them through the water.
Okay, so with that being said, because they have the webbed feet, where is it specifically that they live? Not just Florida or Louisiana, Anaya?
In the water?
Yes, they live in the wild, but what about that environment? They describe the environment that they live in, Kiara. They live in water, lakes, ponds, swamps, and marshes. Those all have to do with water, okay? So because Florida and Louisiana has those things, they're able to use their webbed feet to live in those areas. Does everyone see how we use the text evidence to make that inference? Okay, so again, they're able to live in Florida and Louisiana because the text states that they live near rivers, lakes, ponds, swamps, and marshes. Those all have to do with water, and they're able to live there because they have the webbed feet, so that they're able to swim and that they're able to propel through the water. Does that make sense? Yes, Nicolette.
One time I went to Florida and I saw alligators peeking out the water.
Yeah, one time I went to Florida and, you can eat alligator.
Yes.
It actually tastes pretty good. I tasted it when I was like in the 4th grade. I was freaked out by it and I didn't think I would ever eat it. But it was actually pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. It does taste like chicken. It sounds silly, but it tastes like chicken.
I mean, when you eat chicken,
Well, yeah. It just tastes like rubbery chicken. Yes, Devin.
I tried alligator, and to me, it tastes like steak.
Okay. To you, it tastes like steak. To me, it tastes like chicken. Let's do one last one together. Okay. Courtney, can you read the passage?
a cloud is made up of large collection of very tiny droplets of water or ice crystals. These droplets are so tiny and light that they can float in the air. Clouds are formed when warm air heats water and changes it into water vapor. As this water evaporates,
Good.
it rises.
Eventually.
Eventually, some of the water vapor condenses around tiny pieces of dust that are floating in the air. When billions of these droplets come together, they become a cloud.
Okay, so our first passage was talking about American alligators, and we were able to make an inference and use text evidence to support our answer. I have a question. What is the purpose of that paragraph? Is it to entertain you? Is it to persuade you? Or is it to inform you? Yana? Think about it. Persuade is trying to get you to do something. Inform you is just giving you facts and details. And entertain is to get you to feel something with the character. Inform. Because in this paragraph, it tells us the process and how, which, what are formed. And the only way it's able to do that is to give you just facts and details and literally tell you the order and how it's formed. Okay? Does everyone understand that? Yes, Sam. Say that again. Right. Okay. Does everyone understand that?
Yes.
All right. So we all understand what author's purpose is, correct?
Yes.
We all understand how we use text evidence to support our answers.
Yes.
Okay, so if you were ever to have a constructed response and they asked you a question, you would know about what the author's purpose is in the passage. You would know how to identify the purpose, and you would know how to support it with text evidence. Does everyone understand? All right, good job. You can go back to your seats and clean up your workspaces.